Bem-vindo ao meu canal. Welcome to my channel. I'm practicing my Portuguese. Welcome back. Today is going to be a question and answers day. So I put this video out quite a while ago and said, give me your questions, and as long as it's not political and as long as it's not religious, I'll try to answer them. So I've got a list. I don't know how far I'm going to get through. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to try to make my responses brief, since I tend to talk too much. So I'm doing this because of this. So last Monday, no, the Monday before last, so a little over a week and a half ago, I was mountain biking and I had a pretty bad accident, actually. I don't know what happened. I only remember a little bit what happened. I do know I was going down a hill really fast on a gravel road, and at the bottom there was a cow, vaca, and small one, probably a young cow. And she ran alongside me for a little bit. And then I was into a flat section, looking around as I normally do when I'm riding. And the next thing you know, I'm getting up off the ground. And here's some pictures of what I looked like. I smacked my head pretty hard. I actually broke my helmet, and so I have to replace that. They took me to a local clinic and eventually put me in the ambulance and took me to Criciúma, which has a much larger hospital. I had a CAT scan on my head. Everything is normal on the outside, but inside it's still screwed up. But they x-rayed my body, and turned out I did break a bone in this hand, although I fell mostly on my right side. I have a lot of road rash that was on this side. I had road rash here, as you can see, or you saw in the picture. And I don't know. I went back and took a look. I couldn't find anything in the road. I do know the only way for me to fall down that hard is for my front tire to come out from under me. Having fallen many times before mountain biking, I'm familiar with the different types of accidents. So let's get into some of the questions and answers. So I have a list here, and I'll go through this list as quickly as possible, and make sure that I give out good information. I'm going to call out the users that supplied the questions. Hopefully that's okay with people. And if you have more questions, please put them in the video, because I would like to do this again. So the next couple questions are from Oliver 7. And some of these questions are from, I would say, most of the constant commenters in my videos. I'm not giving them preferential treatment. They're just the ones that provided the actual questions. So before I actually start on this, let's go quickly over my background. I grew up in the United States, obviously, but in the state of Wisconsin. That's the north Midwest portion of the United States. I grew up on a dairy farm. We milked between 70 and 80 cows a day. I think we had over 200 cattle. The farm property ranged at different times while I was on the farm. At one time, I know we had probably over 800 acres of land, but I think we owned somewhere between 300 and 400 acres of land. I'd have to convert that to hectares, but I think it's 2.5 acres to 1 hectare. So you guys can do the math on that. So I lived on the farm till I was about 18. I decided to go to college in Chicago to be an electrical engineer. I spent 6 months down there. I didn't like it. I didn't have study habits. and that's due to a lot of my growing up, problems of growing up with your grandparents. So anyways, I came back to the farm. I decided I definitely didn't want to do farming. I loved farming, but there just wasn't a lot of money in it. And it's not that I wanted to be rich, but I didn't feel like working that hard to make a couple dollars an hour. So a friend of mine went to a local Navy recruiter, and I went with them. Next thing you know, I signed up and I joined the Navy. While in the Navy, I volunteered for submarines, so I was actually in submarine duty. I served on 2 fast attack submarines. I was also a naval instructor. While being a naval instructor, I became a master training specialist. That's somebody who stands out within the training community, and I think it was about 10% of the instructors that apply actually achieve this. So it was a pretty big highlight in my naval career. The 2 submarines I served on was USS Helena and USS Boston, named after 2 cities in the United States. Helena was a brand new submarine. I was on her as a pre-commissioning unit. And as that is, I am considered a plank owner. When you're a plank owner, that means when the submarine's decommissioned, you could actually get a small piece of the submarine. She's still active duty. I'm not sure where she's at in the United States right now. And USS Boston was the last submarine I was on, but she's actually been decommissioned, which means she's been taken out of active service in that. After the Navy in 1994, I became what's called a defense contractor. So I worked for a company that worked on contracts for the Department of Defense. I did that from 1994 to 2024. In 2023, though, is when actually in 2022 is when we made the decision to move to Brazil. And what do I mean by we? Anna and I. Anna was my fiance at that time, and we decided to move to Brazil, and then I would work remotely from here, which I did do for about 1 year. So that gets us up to this point, to where I'm here living in Brazil. I'm currently 60 years old. When I got to Brazil, I was 58. And that'll give you some concept of time. So we actually arrived in Brazil in 2023, August 13th. And this August, it's been 2 years that we've actually lived here in Brazil. So the first 3 questions are from Oliver74920. And the first question is why leave the land of opportunities to go to Brazil? Well, the United States is a land of opportunities, but the cost of living in the United States has gotten extremely high. I am an older person, so I'm approaching retirement. To live in the United States on a retirement income is absolutely very difficult. And the only way you can do that is if you plan ahead when you're 20 and start putting away in 401ks, Roth IRAs, and savings accounts, so that you have something to live on when you reach a retirement age. And what is that retirement age? Social Security wise in the United States, that's 62 and a half. Most people don't retire at 62 and a half. Only people that have a good retirement, they either have a pension or good 401ks, can retire. And in the United States, 401ks, you can actually start using that money when you're 59 and a half years old. So my retirement was pretty poor. I didn't have the education, the background, the knowledge to know what to do and to start doing this early to make sure that I had a good retirement. So even though I made good money in my later years in the United States, I didn't make good money in my early years. And The only type of investments I had was a small 401k. I have Social Security, which I can't take until I'm 62 and a half, and I told you I was, what, 60 years old? Yes. So I moved to Brazil for two reasons. One, I love the climate here. The climate here in this region in Santa Catarina, for my latitude and longitude, is similar to San Antonio, Texas, or it's a little warmer in Florida because Florida is surrounded with water, but for the most part, those are the areas like Orlando, Florida area would be the typical winter, summer temperature range for this area. I just don't like the cold weather anymore, especially if there's snow on the ground, because I don't do anything in the snow. So my main reason for moving here was one, retirement, so I could use the amount of money that I had as well as I could, and I don't mean that in a bad way. The cost of living here in Brazil is significantly cheaper than in the United States, and anybody who's lived in various portions of the United States, they know it. It's the living expenses are just atrocious, and they're only getting worse. So the other reason is my wife is from this area, and she had been missing her brothers and sisters and family, and we decided to also move here at a younger age so that we could still be able to do work on our property. And we didn't know what that property was. However, you've seen in my videos what this property is and what we finally decided to buy and live on. So those are the two major reasons. Retirement is one of them, and family here. Now, I do have my own family back in the United States, so it was a very difficult decision. But I weighed working until I was 70 years old in some store or some company, versus coming to Brazil, working on the property every day, doing something I enjoy doing, something I love to do, being outside, building, growing, and things like that, versus the humdrum of going to work every day. So those were my decisions in coming here. I still very much miss my family. There are days or months that are very, very difficult. But you kind of have to live with the decisions that you make. So the next question by Oliver was, do I tend to make this place profitable? First answer was yes. Answer now is no. We've decided that we like the quiet, the serenity of the property. We don't want a cabana on it, have to worry about dealing with people with loud music, or also being tied to the property every weekend and ensuring the cabana and everything is ready for a rental and stuff like that. So we've decided to not do that. We just want to enjoy the property and then do other things in our retirement. Number 3, probably one of my favorite questions. Are you happy to live in Brazil? And I will have to say absolutely yes. Am I surprised by that? Yes, because I didn't know what to expect. I came and visited in 2022 for the first time for 2 weeks. I got a good sense of what the city life was, but I had no idea what the country life was. And I'm a country boy, so I don't want to live in the city. We did go out to the country. I loved seeing the scenic areas in the country, the way it looked, how people were living. But I hadn't lived here and hadn't spent enough time here to really know. But I had enough sense of how the people treat people, how I was welcomed, even though I didn't speak Portuguese. And that was enough to solidify my choice. Yes, I'll move to Brazil. And now that I've been here for 2 years, one of the best decisions I made in my life. This could be because of the area that I live in. I know some people may, dispute this. I have no desire to live in Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, the big cities, even Criciúma, who's 45 minutes away, has 200,000 people. If I don't have to go into the big cities, I won't. I would rather go to a small city like Nova Vicenza, Siderópolis, Treviso to buy the things that I need. But if those smaller stores don't have it, then I'll go into the city. But it'll be, okay, today we're going to do what we need, and we're not coming back for another month. I'm just not a city guy. So number 4, metric system. Gustavo Barreto asked this question. I was resistant to use the metric system when I got here, but I found that everything here in Brazil is metric, so it's either comply or find it very difficult. So let's just talk about measurements. Measuring tape, 1 meter versus 600 centimeters, which is 6 meters, blah, 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 blah. After I started thinking about it, started using it, it wasn't a big deal. The problem I had initially is I'd be cutting wood and stuff. So I'd measure a piece in metric, and then I would measure a piece in inches or feet. Well, when you go back to do something, it starts to get confusing. This last year, I would say, I've predominantly only used metric. Let's see, number 5, Macron. I'm just going to say the last portion of the user's name. What was your expectations to living here? Well, while I was in the Navy, I traveled to a lot of different countries. So I've seen a lot of different styles of living. I've seen a lot of different ways of life, different cultures. So I can't say that I had an expectation. I came with an open mind, because I think if you have expectations, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So I really just came with an open mind, understanding that there may be things that are different, but it's not necessarily bad. It's just different. It's different than what I grew up with. When you grew up with something for a long period of time, and then you experience something different, sometimes it takes time to get acclimated to that difference. And, and once you're acclimated, it's not that big of a deal. It's not a big a difference. It's just one thing is not the same as the other. So, and I'll get into that. One of the other questions, I can expound more on that. Well, actually, it's the next question from the same person. What are the differences between here and the U.S.? So the first thing I will say is Walmart and Home Depot are one-stop shopping areas. If I need any type of construction material, things for the house, I go to Home Depot. I can get cement, I can get wood, I can get paint, I can get electronics, I can get plumbing, I can get yard materials, pesticides, fertilizers, seeds, I can get plants. So in Brazil, those are separated. If I want hardware, I have to go to a hardware store. If I want tint, some hardware stores have tint, but you're better off going to a tint store, or a paint store, I'm sorry. If I want agricultural type stuff, seeds, feed for the cattle, I need to go to an agricultural store. Now, that's somewhat similar in the United States. Like if I want feed for cattle and stuff, I'm not going to find that in Home Depot. But I can find bird seed in Home Depot, things like that. I can find fencing in Home Depot, but I'd have to go to a hardware store or an ag store to get fencing, for the property. So that took me a while to get used to, having to go to different places to get different things. And that's the same thing with grocery shopping. I go to a grocery store, I can get, here you can buy beer and, and liquor in a grocery store and get your meats. But you can't get your medications. So if I went to Walmart, I can get my medications. I can actually, a super Walmart, I should say. I can get all my clothing that I need. I can also go to the pharmacy in the store. It also has a garden shop area. It has a toys area. It has a hardware area. It has an auto parts area. I go to one store and I can get pretty much everything I need, unless there's a real specialty item that I need that I may have to go to a specific store. In the United States, if I want paint, I'd either go to Home Depot or go to a paint store. Auto parts, go to an auto parts store. Those are some specialty items there. Let's see, cost of living compared to the US dollar. Well, certain things in Brazil are cheaper. Construction material, housing material, furniture, dishes, some household electronics or appliances for the kitchen, things like that. Electrical lighting, electrical wiring, plumbing, those things are cheaper. Our kitchen that we had installed, significantly cheaper than what it would cost in the United States. Expensive things in Brazil. Certain electronics, gaming consoles, TVs, computers are outrageously expensive down here. Even my mountain bike that I crashed on, which by the way has no scratches, only my body does, is super expensive down here. It's actually double the cost here in Brazil. My mountain bike cost me in the United States around 3,000 US dollars, which would be about 15,000 reais here in Brazil. If you go to the same website and try to buy that bike here, it's 30,000 reais. I don't understand that. Because for me to get my bike here, I brought it on the plane, it cost me an extra $100. The shipping can't be that expensive. So I don't understand the justification on some of these things. But yeah, so like my gaming console, I bought in the United States and brought here. I bought an Oculus 3 down here, and it was, I would say, about 25% more expensive here than in the United States. So those are some things that are different, but you have to pick and choose, what you're willing to spend your money on. You can find alternatives that are cheaper, but you have to decide if that item that's cheaper is worth that price, meaning does it have the same functionality, same quality, and things like that. Another question from Macron is things you like and dislike here. So first, let's just preface this with there are things that are different here than in the United States, and that doesn't necessarily mean I dislike it or I do like it. But I'll tell you one thing I do not like. I do not like lambadas. I hate those things with a passion. And why? Well, one, not one of them is the same. Some are taller, some are wider, some are bigger, some are longer. Some have good marked signs, some do not. Sometimes there's a lambada and then there's a raised elevation crosswalk right next to it. Why? Either have one or the other. You don't need both. Okay. That's my only major dislike here. So, what are some of my likes? Barbecues here, how Brazilian people enjoy going together for get-togethers, whether it's a parade or a town function or a family function. They get together, people bring instruments, they start singing and playing music, having drinks, eating all the time, bringing comida around and meat around. Yeah, I love barbecues. I love the people here. So I've had only good experiences here. I don't even know really how to explain it. Everybody has been very nice and very welcoming. Is that because I live in a small town? I don't know. I didn't live in a large town like Sao Paulo or Rio, so I don't know how a foreigner is treated, but people are very patient when I'm trying to converse with them, whether it's with my broken Portuguese or with using my phone to translate various things. So, and it's interesting how people interact with me, but no, I love the Brazilian people. So, and like I said, it's also because of how they like to get together. I am kind of an introvert, meaning I like my peace and quiet. I like my loneliness. I can go work out in the field all day and I'm perfectly content. But I do enjoy having people over and seeing people happy and enjoying themselves. So let's see. What are your future plans for the channel? All right. So this is by CP300. I'm just going to call him Mustang. So we actually talk a lot in my subscriber comments and that. And so we have some really good conversations. And the other thing that I like about Mustang's comments, he is very honest with me because I like feedback on my videos. And he'll tell me, I like this video or I didn't like this video. He's only said he didn't like one video. So, and he explained why. And I totally understood it. And it totally made sense because I've had my same views driving around, seeing things on properties that I just didn't like. And I thought, why do people not try to take care of this a little bit better? But getting a little off topic here. So anyways, we're done doing the major construction on this property. We don't plan to build any more buildings. We don't plan to dig any more ponds. We don't plan to put any more steps in. I have a lot of minor little things that I need to do. So my plan is to start expanding some things that I've always wanted to do since coming down here. And that's show some of the things I have always enjoyed that we've cooked in the United States that people don't make down here. But there's things that are difficult with that. Finding the ingredients or finding substitute ingredients. So one thing I plan to do is I plan to show my grandmother's homemade bread recipe, which we can make down here with no problem. And very simple recipe, but it's my grandma's recipe. And she's the one that raised me, but it's one I want to share with people. We want to start traveling a little bit more and seeing more of southern Brazil. I do want to go to the big waterfalls in the next state. I can't remember the exact name, but it's got like 270 waterfalls. It's part of Brazil and I think Argentina. But we're going to go on a trip here this next month. I plan on doing some videotaping of that. You know, so that's part of what I want to do. And then more into the things that we're actually trying to grow and expand. My pitaya plants, our coffee bean plants, our garden. This year we have a better understanding of how things are going to grow in the garden during the summer months. So the plan is to, you know, show more of that, show what we're trying to do to, you know, take care of pests or, you know, make sure we get good harvests and stuff like that. One of the users, I actually don't have the name, asked, I dream of owning a farm like this. If you could give us any information about cost or improvements. So I think costs are kind of relative. It's relative to who you hire, what you're building, and what you're actually doing. So first of all, one, you don't need a pond as big as we got. You can obviously dig a much smaller pond and it'll cost us significantly less. So we did a very large pond, so we had a very large excavator come in, and the excavator was here for about 18 hours, and it cost us almost 7,000 reais to do the pond. And I'm not putting this information out there to make it sound like, oh boy, you are rich, you came down here with a lot of money. That's not the case. We had a preconceived budget on what we were willing to spend to improve the property, and certain things fell within that budget. You could make a significantly smaller pond for a lot less money, and it wouldn't cost nowhere near that much, probably between 1,000 and 2,000 reais, depending on the size of the pond. The big shed, galpão, paiol, whatever you want to call it, it is way too big. It's bigger than some of the houses in the area down here. But I knew what I wanted for my retirement, to be able to do things in there, and Anna had her ideas of what she wanted to do in the shed, and so we made it bigger than we thought we were going to need. And that shed with construction material and labor cost us around 18,000 reais. I also don't think you need this much land. Our previous property that we bought when we first came to Brazil was 2 hectares. I think between 2 and 3 hectares is more than enough land to have a decent property with small farm animals, a nice garden, maybe even a small field with a small shed, chicken coop, and a house. What the cost would be, I have no idea. If you could buy a property that has some of that already on there, and then you just maybe improve it, I think it would be significantly cheaper than buying cleared land and building from the ground up, unless that's what you want. Our first set of property was like that. We had 2 hectares of land on the other side of Nova Vicenza in a small town called San Francisco area, and it was completely cleared land, so we were going to be building from the ground up. And a number of factors made us change our mind on that, and we saw the potential in this property and decided this is what we wanted to do, and this is where we wanted to start. Anna 7678. It's Anna Arula 7678. Anyways, she asked how I met Anna. So I met Anna in 2016, and she was the one that contacted me. We were on a program, a dating app called POF, Plenty of Fish. She lived in Boston. I lived in southern Rhode Island, about 76 miles away. And basically, kind of keep it simple, she reached out to me. I started talking to her. We talked for a few days. I asked if she was okay with a longer distance relationship, meaning we just couldn't drive over to see each other. She thought I lived in the town adjoining hers, Charlestown, Massachusetts, but I actually was in Charlestown, Rhode Island. And so she said to me that, she says, well, if you don't like the distance, that's okay, we don't have to continue this. And I said, well, how about if we meet first and then we'll decide from there. I met her, we started talking on a Sunday. I met her the next Friday up in Boston. Went back the next Saturday. Then I think it was a few days later, maybe midweek, I went up and saw her again and came back home. And I think it was like 3 weeks later, I would come up and stay the whole weekend with her and then come back to my house in Charlestown. That's pretty much it. And then we got engaged, and when we moved to Brazil, we got actually married September 1st, 2023. So that's how we met. She actually found me. I had a 10-mile radius that I was looking in, and she was obviously 76 miles away, so she was way out of my radius. So I'll let her explain that someday. But so Worley asks me, if looking today, aren't Brazilians having a very comfortable life in front of the world? I suppose it would depend on where Brazilians live. So let me explain this. I think the way of life, at least from what I have seen here in Brazil, is much more relaxed. What do I mean by that? People go to work, they take a 1-hour lunch break. Like in our area, the stores close for that period of time and then open up in the afternoon. I can drive through the weekend from house to house through our neighborhood, and I can hear people having parties or barbecues and just enjoying themselves. I think people live a less hectic life here in Brazil for the most part. And maybe not this true for everybody, but from the people I've ran into, I would have to say yes. I think in the United States, we are always going from point A to point B to, you know, running around all night to then going to bed, getting up in the morning and doing work the next day. It took me, I would say, 1.5 years before I finally stopped worrying about time, took me 1.5 years to stop worrying about time, slowing down, and just enjoying the day. And if I got to what I needed to get to, that was okay. If I didn't get to it, that was okay too. I think in the United States, when people finally get a chance to slow down, they really don't even have time to enjoy it, because as they're enjoying it, they're probably worrying about what they got to do the next day or what things got to get done, you know, and stuff like that. So so with that, I think I'm going to let that be the end of this video. I had other questions, but like I said, some of them were political leaning, some of them were religious leaning. I don't want to even get into that stuff. It makes no difference. I drink the same beer, I eat the same food, I care about people the same way, so political views and religious views have no bearing on me. I just think we need to treat everybody decent and enjoy life and go from there. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If this is the first time you've checked in and saw my content, you know, hit like and subscribe. I'm not posting a lot right now because I'm bunged up. I do have videos I need to finish, but I can't finish them because I'm bunged up. So, but I'll get there and I'll get them out. Like I said, there's no pressure to get them out, but there's also, I'm not going to flood your For You page on YouTube with all kinds of videos. So I appreciate the people that make comments. I enjoy conversing with people. If you have questions, if I've said stuff that's generated questions, put them in there. I'll add them to my list for the next question and answering video. And I look forward to seeing you guys back on my channel in the next video that I post. Take care. Have a good day. Ciao.